Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from tight-knit suburban neighborhood rumors, secret corporate deed properties, and the domestic grief traps of real estate deception, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of primitive Wisconsin Northwoods pine trails, weaponized family vacation isolation, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered preschool teacher running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, blood-splattered perimeters of a secluded lakeside resort complex, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, trust-shattering deception matrix with It's Not Her, the exceptional, pulse-pounding structural masterpiece engineered by the absolute, undisputed sovereign of suburban misdirection, dark teenage rages, and high-velocity domestic dread, Mary Kubica. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, grief-stricken primary maternal asset running an unyielding safety loop, a calculating missing teenage niece asset running a volatile past timeline trajectory, and an absolute defense of a fractured family's final survival metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged police interrogation perimeters, corrupt local resort rumors, and a deadly ring of active insider frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised forest ecosystem where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated counter-surveillance boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, and where the author utilizes an incandescent two families rent a primitive lake cottage together only for one couple to be brutally murdered, leaving their troubled teenage daughter missing diagnostic routine. To test our hero's structural limits, this book is engineered to lock you in. Kubica completely dominates the high-precision Northwoods cabin brutality meets suffocating adolescent psychology dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Ashley Elston, Lucy Foley, and Sherry Lapina, while treating realistic, severe sleepwalking forensic logistics, complex multi-generational trauma aligning arcs, and protective high-density psychological extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, Courtney Gray, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of paralyzing trauma shock, escalating small-town suspicion, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within her own family's historical database. Behind Courtney's rigorous preschool teacher footprints and tense personal history logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried high-society friction, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of protecting her brother Nolan and her best friend turned sister-in-law Emily, her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an aggressive local investigative shadow network, parsing complex behavioral shifts from her young nephew Wyatt and her lawyer husband Elliot, and shielding her vulnerable son Cam from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanout offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. A piercing, blood-curdling scream shatters her peaceful morning pancake preparation, transforming their joint vacation into a high-level calculated malice. Upon entering the cabin next door, Courtney registers a total baseline wipeout, the lifeless, brutalized bodies of Nolan and Emily. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot across a dual timeline tracking grid, alternating between Courtney's frantic present-day investigation and her 17-year-old niece Reese's volatile, rage-filled past logs. Reese is completely missing from the property grid, while her younger brother Wyatt remains impossibly asleep upstairs, unharmed. The standard boundaries of routine domestic compliance and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. Courtney is thrust directly into an active invisible war across the resort town, where deceptive childhood family entities masking their true tracking coordinates, blood-flecked luxury footwear signatures, and a calculation-heavy psychological shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her family's survival data stream. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turn completely active, transforming the isolated rustic cabins, dark pine forest perimeters, and private fortified residential rooms into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to preserve her focus before the hidden adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep geographical insulation, continuous local police profiling loops, and persistent psychological dominance to frame the missing teenager, only to realize Courtney's hardened defensive protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of family financial strain records, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Holiday Elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Mary Kubica reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial cabin ambush or managing a difficult adolescent disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central protagonists smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their shared perimeter, a brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated secrets have tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller / Northwoods cabin noir / dual timeline mystery / high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency one-spotted bloodstain on a spouse's shoe triggers a fatal lakeside showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Kubica writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, utilizing short staccato sentences to perfectly capture the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, damp pine needles, cold lake water, metallic crimson, dynamic adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute, jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. It's Not Her is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.